This is Unity, and this is an awesome side-scrolly, jumpy game that you can build. I'm gonna play to show it off. I'm the robot, I'm a jumpin', I jumped over the gnome, I got a point. I'm gonna jump over the next gnome, I get a point. The gnome speed and size of the gnome can change. That one's fast. And it provides some variability within the gameplay. So, why this is a good thing to make, a good game to make? It's a perfect starting game. First of all, the sprites, the background I own, I created. They are free for you to use and in the description. Also, the code. You're going to get into collisions, you're going to get into some basic physics, some grabbing and editing text, some live rendering of vectors. There is a lot to learn in Unity, and the best way to do so is by making something. So, not only are you going to be learning, but you have a game to show off to your friends, and hopefully, well, you should make it better than mine. Add enemies, add bonuses, so on and so forth. Let's dive in. So, I already have a second window open. It is 2D, and you name it whatever you want. I'm going to say Jumpy Robot, because I am creative. All right, and let's hit create. And here we are. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and put this in full screen. We got a nothingness, which is what we want. Let's go look at our project. All right. So I'm going to just rename this scene. I hate it being named sample scene. So I'm just going to right click here, rename, and I don't know, main scene. Awesome. Okay. Let's go to assets and let's go ahead and import our sprites. So to do that, I'm just going to go to downloads, which I believe I have loaded. Yes. So this is my downloads folder. And the reason I'm going to my folder here is you can just click and drag. So again, I'll link these assets. I have created them. You are welcome to use them. And I'm going to drag all of these here. Just drop them in. I won't be needing that. And I should plan this in advance. I want to go ahead and create a folder named sprites. All right. And now let me just get all my sprites in here. So the gnome obviously was the enemy. The robot is the player. So let's start with creating a canvas. I'm going to right click and do create UI canvas. And there it goes in our event system. And we're going to leave this as our is. The canvas is where you put your stuff. It's where our score will pop up and you'll see as we go. So for our background, I'm going to go to sprites and I'm going to use this one. Just drop it in. There we are. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and rename it creatively background. Awesome. That is looking good. So moving right along here, let's grab our player and drop. And our player is huge. Oh no. What we're going to do, there are a few ways to solve this, but what I'm going to do is head over to the sprite, right? So this is the player, but this is the sprite, the image that is part of the player. So if I go here, sideways, what's the image for this? But it doesn't need to be named sideways. I can rename it right here, player. And it just has this image attached, right? I can change this to anything I need, and the object, the game object, stays the same. The image that is shown does not. So I'm going to actually edit the sprite. And to do this, I'm going to take pixels per unit, and I'm going to double it. That will mean every unit has twice the amount of pixels, so it will condense the robot. Just like that. So that is more of what we're looking for. And now we can kind of finagle with this. Where do I want the player to be? Maybe up over here and down some. Maybe I'll just stick with a negative 6.3 or so and a negative 1.2 for Y. That's looking great. Size-wise, we'll leave it, well, maybe a 0.8. What did I do? 0.8. There we go. We'll leave it for now. All right, great. And now let's do our enemy. Boom. Huge enemy. Okay. So first, let me call him enemy. And for our enemy, let's do what we did before. I want to change the pixel density, so 130 for the pixels per unit, and hit apply. And that shrinks them down a bit, but really where we want to change it is in here. I'm going to do a 0.8 and then a 0.6 probably to start. And remember, the gnome's size actually changes as it's played. Negative 1.7-ish. Yeah, and let's just something like that. 5, we'll keep those the same. All right, awesome. So let's go ahead now that we have our characters. We do want to confirm, well, we need to add box colliders. So I'm going to add a component, and you can just type it in, box collider. Boom. All right, and there we are. And this is the area that can actually, well, be collided with. Okay, and we are going to want more than that. They also need a rigid body. Rigid body 2D is what we're looking for. So a box collider and a rigid body. And we need the same for the player. Add component, body 2D, and box collider. I'm actually going to just move this up one. There we are. And now if we go ahead and test out our game and hit play, everything should fall. Ah, that's exactly what we want though. So now we need something for them to land on. And this is what I have a sprite for that, and it's this one, right? It's not going to totally line up with the other stuff in the game. I'm going to scroll to zoom out, and that's fine. We're going to hide it towards the end. I just want to be able to see it. In fact, I want to be able to see it so much, I'm going to actually just put some weird color scheme on it. So I can definitely see where we're at. All right. And I'm also going to increase the scale of x. Let's do 1.3. That's better. Because eventually we could have the enemy jump onto this side so we don't see them when they spawn. Okay. And that might even be 1.15. All right. Looking good. So if this is going to be our ground, I'm going to move this up a teeny bit, and I'm going to want to rename it. Okay, so I'm going to rename it ground, so I know what I'm doing here. And then we need a box collider on it. Perfect, right here. All right. Now let's go ahead and give this a shot. Well, this is a good sign. They don't fall off. Okay. Let me see what's going on with my players. Edit the collider. Yeah, see, my player's collider is way too big. And now we should see the player fall. Well, just a bit. If you want to test it, like this. Boom. Perfect. All right. So we have that all set up, and now we need to start scripting the game. And to do that, I'm going to click on player here. I'm going to hit add component, and I'm going to type player script. How about new script, create an add. So what will happen now is, well, that's going to be loaded in Visual Studio, and we can start adding some of the features that our player. Mine's apparently not opening automatically, so, well, this is fine. Let's go ahead and create a folder. I'll need this anyways, scripts. Trust me about organization, guys. You really want to keep this stuff organized, especially as your games get more complicated. That being said, too, you should save frequently. Oops. You should save not in play mode. There we are. Let me click here. And we have this beautiful blank script. Let's do a split screen on this guy and this guy. Alrighty. And I'm going to zoom out. So here we are. Here is the script that we have. So we're going to need a few things. I know right off the bat with what we're using, I'm going to need this Unity engine, but .ui. So I'm just going to copy and paste it, and then put a .ui to save me from doing that later. All right, now for the variables, I'm going to want a public float. And what's really cool about Unity, public float, move speed. Me saying public float means I'm going to decide in the game or in the properties panel what that is equal to, right? I can set this equal to 1. I'm not going to though. Let me go ahead and save this and I can show you. Player. And it takes a second to pop up usually. I'm going to shrink down on rigid body. But right... I guess it didn't get added. So here we are. There it is. Okay, and here's movement speed. Right there. We made it a public float. So now I can control right here, I don't know, 5 maybe. And we can control what the movement speed is within the properties panel. All right, what else do we need? We need public float. I'm going to use jump force. This is going to be kind of the height of the jump. And we're going to need a score. So public int score. What should be the score when they start? 0. They haven't earned it. And then we're going to use a public text score text, which we still need to add. Okay, but these are the components, these are the variables we want to have up here. Now, for on start, the main thing we want to make sure happens, oops, and I need to declare that. I'm going to separate this out a bit. Private, rigid, body, 2D. We want to grab the rigid body of the player. I'm going to call it my rigid body. So we're going to use this variable, this rigid body variable, and throughout this. So now, upon start, once it boots up, we want to do my rigid body because we created this variable, but we haven't defined it, right? And we're not going to define it until the actual start of the game. You don't want to define it before that. You want to define it live when the game gets going. So get component rigid body 2D and parentheses. So now we'll grab the rigid body, right? The rigid body of the player. And what the rigid body is doing, by the way, it's allowing us to add mass, gravity, all of that. It allows interaction between objects, or at least how it will respond. All right. And we will be getting into using that, obviously. So void update is going to be used as well. If input, because we got to be able to play this, right? Input dot get key down. So if we have a key go down, what key? In Unity, you want to type keycode dot space. That's what I was using. And then what do I want to have happen here? So if space goes down, well, I want my player to jump. So I'm going to have to mess with the transform. What the heck's a transform? Right here. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you're editing. So I'm going to write if transform position dot y. So if y is less than negative 0.7f, right? So here's my y, here's my player. Let's just kind of guesstimating here. So yeah, if it's less than negative 7. So what I'm saying is don't let the player jump unless they're on the ground. So if it is less than negative 7, what do we want to have happen? Well, we're going to allow them. F means float, by the way. Did I just misspell position? Yes, I did. Nice. F means float. So it's just 0.7. It's a floating point. I'm going to get there eventually. Position. There we are. Wow. All right. Now, what do we want to... Okay. So now this is where we're going to grab that rigid body variable. And we're going to ask to change its velocity. So get the rigid body, get the velocity. And we do need a new vector 2. And what are we doing to it? My rigid body dot velocity dot x comma jump force. So we're leaving x the same, right? My rigid body velocity dot x is going to be equal to what it was previously. My typing is not stellar, is going to be equal to what it was previously. But what we're changing, we're making this new vector 2, which is a 2D graphic. It's like the vertices, the points, the lines, the positioning of them. So to make something look like it's moving, you're going to change those vertices. So we're saying, hey, create a new image. It's really just the same image. Create a new position for this image and push or assign that to the rigid body. Make the rigid body this new thing. Okay? And is this getting closed? That's closed there. All right, let's see what we got thus far. I'm going to go ahead and save, click over here, and let's see. Score can be 0, jump force can be 15, I guess. Let me actually do a file save here. Let's see if it runs. And, oh. We might want to increase gravity or decrease jump force. Let's see. Out of game mode, 8, file, save. Alright, I want to use gravity, so I'm going to say 15 here. But with, oh, I'm still in. So nothing saves if you're still in play mode, by the way. 15 here. And then my gravity, I'm going to double it. Let's see how this works. Yeah, that's more of what I was thinking. Great. So, now that we have the player moving, let's give the enemy the power to move. So I'm going to go ahead and click and add, and let's say enemy script. New script, create and add, and did it add it? This time it even added it. All right, and so that should pop up. Let's go ahead and move this into scripts. Boom. All right, so this is going to have some similarities with our player script. However, our enemy is automated and moving left, whereas our player is somewhat stationary other than moving up and down. So what we need first is movement speed. Not a jump speed, I guess. This is a movement speed. And we can set it within this. Okay, but I made it public so I can edit in the properties panel as well. We're going to do like we did before with the rigid body. I'll put this down here. Because we need to grab the rigid body of our enemy to be able to move those vertices, those lines, that configuration around. Okay, and so now that we have a rigid body, and again, I just titled it My Rigid Body, I need to do the same thing, My Rigid Body, that I did for the player. I'm going to get component, because this is already assigned to the game object that is the enemy. So when we say get component, it knows, Unity knows we mean from our current game object, get component rigid body 2D, parentheses, semicolon. All right, so now that we have it, what do we want to do with it? Well, we want to make it move. So on update, we're going to click down here, and my rigid body dot blah equals, and I want to show you actually, if you go over here, what we're going to do is very similar. In fact, I'm just going to grab this just to give you an idea, because this time we're just moving X instead of Y. So watch. We got a new vector 2 again. Yep, because we need a new vector, and we're going to give that to the rigid body, a new position, a new 2D position. Now the difference being is Y is going to stay the same. So Y is going to be equal to what Y used to be equal to. So hey, my rigid body velocity Y, whatever speed it used to be, we're setting the velocity Y equal to rigid body dot velocity Y. So the exact same thing it used to be. The only thing that will be changing, that will be adjusted, is move speed, which is really this, where I'm putting this is how much we're pushing X over each time, each frame. And how much are we moving it each frame? -5. So this should launch our enemy off the screen. Let's give it a shot. And player hit, enemy gone. Awesome. So we want, though, our, let's say the player jumps over them. What should we have happen? We would want our gnome to respawn, right? It's going to be an infinite runner type of situation. So what could we do for that? Well, we should check if they're off the screen. So what would that be? Right now, for my enemy, their X position is 7. Let me zoom out a bit. No. Their X position right now is -10. Okay? -10. So I'm going to say -10.5 maybe, right? So if they're... Nope, let's say -10. If they're at -10, they're off the screen. So what we can do with that knowledge, move this up some. What we can do is now, inside of this update function, I'm going to do an if, and what do I want to check? Well, the transform, right? Because the transform is where you know X and Y from. Transform dot position dot X is less than -10. Because if it is less than -10, they are out of here. Okay? Our enemy has left the building if it is less than -10. So what do we want to do then? Well, we want them to actually respawn. How can we make that happen? Actually, I'm going to make this a separate function because we're going to want the enemy to respawn twice if they go off the screen and if they hit the player. So void respawn. If you don't capitalize a function name, Unity gets grumpy at you. All right, so transform dot position equals new vector 2, and where do we want it to be? Well, where's this right here? So maybe -1 and 6.5. I want it on the screen right now so we can see it. So I'm going to say 6.5 comma -1. Oh, this is a float. 6.5, yep, -1. All right, and then let's try that out. Oh, we never ran respawn. Let me save. Try that out. Jump. Ooh, ah. Well, not ideal, but the code is working. All right. Actually, let's take care of that now. The player, I don't want the player to tip, so to make that not happen, we are going to freeze rotation, and I'm also, is it the X I need? Yeah. So now they can't push or get rid of our player. Okay? All right. And then enemy, we also really don't want rotation. So now that we're respawning, what do we want else? What else could we have happen? Well, I want some variability to the game. So I'm going to do transform.local scale because this is how I edited the, and I'm going to do plus equals, which is, well, the same thing as doing equals transform.local scale plus. And this is how I edited or made the size of the gnome vary. New dot vector 3 0 comma random range, and I'm gonna do, I was thinking -0.1 f for float to 0.1. So small, but it still just adds some variability to our game. Great. Let me add a float behind that. Okay. So that is looking good. And the only thing I'm randomizing is the height. Everything else I'm just leaving the same. And then let's make the speed a variable as well. So, well, I guess it already is a variable, but we can make it change. So let's do make it change random number range -8.0 comma to maybe -4 point. Well, I can do 3 so we can see it for sure. Okay. And that's looking good. So now let's test some of that out. I'm gonna also, though, on my player, I'm gonna shrink all of this by 0.8. That looks way too small. Let's do 0.9, 0.9, 0.9. Just want to be able to win. Jump! Oh, darn it. And we haven't enabled respawning yet, so that won't be a problem soon enough. Okay, and there we are. There we are. Spawning's working. Let's just make sure the speed is. Oh yeah, okay. Well, now that we got that cleared up, let me save all this. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, we want a point system. Okay. Oh wait, we also want it to respawn upon smacking into our player. So to do that, let's go. I'm gonna actually just put it in between start right here. So void on collision enter 2D, and this is a pre-made function, out of the box thing. I'm lazy. I'm just going to do COLL. All right, so on collision. So this means whatever object this is attached to, which is our enemy, when it collides, what do we want to have happen? Well, if call dot game object dot name equals player, and player's coming from here, so make sure it's exactly what you wrote. So if it's equal to the player, what do we want to have happen? Well, we're going to have our enemy respawn and attack again, attack anew. All right, now we want the scoring component to our game. So to do that, I'm headed back over here. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna just double click on main camera, zoom in. There we are. To do that, I'm gonna go ahead game object, and it's gonna be UI. And I'm just going to use regular text because I know you will have that. Okay. And I'm going to rename this to be score text. And positioning. You might notice you don't see it. When you double click, oh no, what is it doing over here? This is the actual camera's area. Don't freak out. It is fine. The camera will find our canvas. I mean, our main camera, right? And this is the actual canvas area. It is going to be slapped into the main camera's area. So it is fine that it is here. We do want to change it up a bit though. So what I would do is I'm going to guesstimate some. And I'm really bad at it. So I'm not going to guesstimate some. Something like that. Okay. And then for, let's do 60 and 60. Because the score we're figuring won't go too high, but we could do something like 120, and that wouldn't matter. I'm going to put it right here. So let's say 95, 165 for me. And now the font size, I'm going to do something like 50, because the larger the font, the nicer it will look. And you'll see what I mean. 0 is fine. If I want to test out 2, yep, that's 2. I'm going to align it here. Is what we would want. And then the color we're going to want for our text is, well, I think white looks nice. Let's go back to our main camera and let's just see if it's there. Yeah, there it is popping up. All right, but it's in the wrong spot. All right, back to the races. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's say 270, 160. Yeah, I'm liking that. Okay, so that's going to be our score. Now, the code we're going to need to add for our score. We need a way to get points. We need a way to lose points. So, let's head to the player first. How could we get points? Well, to get points, we would want to jump over the enemy. Well, we already have a function that detects when the enemy has passed us, and that's the respawning, right? Because if the enemy respawns, if an enemy is respawning over here, we must have jumped over it. Because if it hits us, it goes back. So we could actually add to score within the enemy's code. In the player's code, though, we want to know if our player hits the enemy. We could do this within the enemy's score as well, right? Because we already have a function there. So we can actually control the score entirely from enemy. We could leave this here for later tracking. Honestly, though, I'm just going to go ahead and move it. For larger games, you might have a separate function for the management of the score. But for us, this is going to be great. All right, so here we go. Score text, text. What it's grumpy now is like we did over there. To use text, we need to copy, enter, paste, and do a .ui. All right. So what is our text? Let me save all this because I have to tell it. It will not know automatically. You must tell it right here. I'm going to tell it what our score text is, and it's this text area. Okay. Now, with that said, I'm starting it at 0. So when should it go up? I'm going to have the score go up when the enemy responds, but only when it responds over here. Because if our enemy is over here, again, the only way the enemy ended up over here is the player jumped over it. So that's when I'm going to say score equals score plus 1, and then I'm going to set the text. So you could also do, if you're more familiar with code, right, score plus plus. I think it's more readable if you're just starting out though. Score equals score plus 1. And now, what do I need to have happen? I want the text to be set. So I'm going to do score text dot text. It sounds redundant, but trust me. Equals score. This won't work unless I do toString, because right now that is an integer. And now the score will update if the player actually jumps over the gnome, hopefully. Let's try. This is not good. It's hard to test when you're not good at the game. Why is the gnome so difficult? Okay, wait a minute. Where's my jump? Gonna cheat in here. 20. Take that. Yep, and the score works. And we have a rocket ship. I find that too funny. All right, but we would want the score to go down if the player hits, right? I'm going to lower that a bit. That's going to be, feels like cheating because it is. Save. So if the player hits our enemy, we need our score to go down. Where do we know if they hit? Well, we already have that too, right here. Because if they collide, we need to respawn our enemy. So same thing then. Score equals score minus 1. Okay, minus 1. And then what? Score text dot text is going to be equal to score dot toString. Boom. Let's save. And jump. That is so slow. We need to make that faster. Granted, I'm still terrible at the game and I had to cheat. Oh, come on. Ah! Oh, I got a point. Go. Anyways, we have a working game. When it goes negative, though, right, I want my player to... Oh, wow, that was fast. I want my player to lose. So that's the last thing I'm going to do is on collision... Yeah, right here. If score... if score is less than 0, score text dot text equals game over. Let's make this as ridiculous as possible. Hey, I'm funny. All right, and play. No, there's not. Oh, there's some errors. There's an error. Okay, it was right this time. Fly, robot, fly! Oh, no. No, oh! Game over. Sad day. So you can see how fast we can get a game up and running. And it'd be fairly easy to look at this code and add, I don't know, a flying hamburger, which I'm going to do later on, that gives the player a bonus point or more enemies. Anything that you would like. So let's do the one last thing I want, which is this ground thing. We're just going to hide it. Sprite render. Nope, no render. Boom. There we are. And obviously, you're going to want to change up the speed of everything yourself. I would also change, so we can go ahead and do that now that I hit the ground. Let's have the gnome maybe start here. So maybe at 10x. So upon respawn, where are we starting our gnome? Movement speed. We were doing, 6. Let's try 10. Bum 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 bum. And that way, our gnome will always spawn off screen. And then again, that last thing I was doing, let's go ahead and hide that, and ta-da! Robot Gnome Assault! Ooh, I just came up with a name for it. Look at the robot! Go, go, go! I gotta speed up this gnome now. I can tell. Regardless, I hope you had fun making this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you made something really awesome. Again, all the assets and all of that, the code, it's all linked in the description. Please use the assets. Please feel free to do so. Make something else with them. Make something better. And tell me about it in the comments. That all being said, make sure to hit like, make sure to hit subscribe. It is encouraging. It gives me warm fuzzies as like an adult, which is rare. And yeah, but again, if you make something cool, make sure to tell me about it below.